out of all these horror movies that I've been wanting you to watch, this was like near the top of the list.
This was a really good movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I described it as the first hour and a half is like a familial drama with some like creepy stuff, and then the last.
Well, it is. It's like it's like a family drama, and it just so happens to start with the mother, who's a grandmother, who's a Satanist, dies.
But you don't know that. You don't know that until the end.
They definitely hint at it.
Throughout the movie, they show like pagan symbols and stuff, but you don't know anything about like payment and Satan and stuff.
You assume that the grandmother, like, I assumed from the beginning, and she took a special interest in the granddaughter, and that's pretty much it. And then she's kind of following the family, dealing with the things that happened to them, and then the last 30 minutes happens.
Is that not balls to the wall? like the moment Gabriel Byrne catches on fire. I remember because Toni Collette at that point is like
she's kind of figured it out.
She's been like inhabited by payment. That's what I looked at because remember the light goes into her.
No, I'm talking about up to that point.
Yeah, she's got it figured out. And that's honestly
and she's trying to stop it.
Yes. Which is so cool, and they do. First of all,
you figure it out with her, and you think she's kind of losing it.
Well, she kind of is, and that's what's so kind of cool because they kind of dive into like maybe the mom was mentally ill, and then that because her whole family. She discusses how she says how her brother was schizophrenic and had killed himself because the mom was trying to put bodies into him. When she says that, you're like, okay, she has like her family has a history of mental illness.
Nope.
No, the family is fucked up.
The brother was telling the truth.
Yeah. Oh, see, that is what is so cool about rewatching this movie is that you catch things like you're sitting there and you're like, oh my god, or like at the beginning where they're at the funeral and
there's a ton of people at the funeral,
and she's like a bunch of like new strange faces, and the guy that's smiling at the funeral and he's the first naked guy you see in the last 20 minutes. God, that last 20 minutes is something. I mean, this was one of my favorite movies of 2017, like no question.
It's probably one of, if not the best made in terms of the acting in this.
Oh, Toni Collette, how she didn't get an Oscar nomination, it is unbelievable to me.
It's one of the better, like, I wouldn't have been shocked if I saw that and you said, "Oh, she won an Academy Award for this," and I'd be like, "Okay,
yeah." Like she's between the scene where the scene after the death of the daughter, where she's just crying, and that feels so real, and that's like a gut punch because you kind of between the kid driving home. And not showing
somebody else.
Alex
really
Wolff.
Good.
Alex Wolff. I told you after we watched it. I was like, his verbal acting is okay.
It's a work in progress.
But his nonverbal, the looks on his faces are amazing. Yeah. And that scene where he's in the car and he knows he just killed his sister. He knows it, and he's looking in the rearview mirror. And then he can't look in the rearview mirror because he knows that if he sees that body, that it's real for him. And that's why he just drives home. And I remember some people complaining, is that in no way would that happen. He would call the cops, he would call us. It's like, I don't know.
Some people go into that state of shock.
And that's exactly what happened. And then after that, the way he acted in the movie he was brilliant.
Yeah, because he was like, you felt in every scene that he was in, that he was carrying that around.
Yeah.
He never let it go.
Like when him and his friends they're smoking, and then he just starts having that panic attack.
Yeah.
God. But back to Toni Collette, and then the scene between him, Alex Wolff, and Toni Collette at dinner, where they just explode on each other. I remember that was the scene for me.
He didn't really explode on
She
her.
did,
Yeah.
though. Oh my god. Something I did want to say. I kind of, because you had not seen the trailer in a long time, right? I wish we had watched the trailer before seeing the movie, because the impact of the daughter dying like 40 minutes in was, for me, like one of the better, I guess it was an excellent marketing tool, because in the trailer you're like insinuated, like it's insinuating that like this girl's gonna be bad by the end. And then when you're watching the movie for the first time and she dies, and not just that like head hits a pole, she's decapitated. And I remember thinking like, what direction is this movie going in now?
Yeah.
And that's why for the
once that happens, after that, it's really a movie just mostly about them dealing with it.
Yeah.
As a family.
But it's just like these creepy things keep happening.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's the friend that meets Toni Collette, and when you look back on it, it was like she had been you would call it. I will admit,
from like the first scene.
It was never chance encounters. It was always like she approached Toni Collette, and it was looking back. It was like she was following her.
Yeah, and
it was because they needed Peter as the vessel for Payman.
Yes.
Well, do you want to get into this? What your theory is?
I don't have a theory about any of it. My point is,
I think
holds me back from this movie being perfect,
which I find ridiculous. Go ahead. I just find this ridiculous.
Well, no. There's a couple things. One, I do think this movie feels really long. Like we got an hour into this movie, and I felt like we've been watching it for an hour and a half. Easy.
It does fly by for me, especially each time I see it more. I've seen it 3 or 4
times. For me,
now.
it's difficult. I mean, to watch them deal with that. I mean, it has to do with their acting. Like you're sitting there, and every scene you're like, God.
Poor Gabriel Byrne too.
And yes, Gabriel Byrne trying to hold the family together, and But so there's that aspect of it. There's the other, which is there's just like little questions, and it's not like it ruins the movie. To me, I said it once it finished. I was like, it feels like
I can't believe you said this. Go ahead.
It feels like an origin movie.
It's so funny to me that you're like, I need more of Payman.
No, I'm not saying in terms of I feel like they were going to make sequels. I never felt like that.
Right, I know.
But in terms of like, they introduce a lot, and throughout the movie, they're giving you a lot of information. But at the same time, the information's kind of vague.
Yeah.
And things happen.
But that's kind of what I liked about it, is that you're getting this information, and at a certain point, you're almost like, what of this information should I really keep on to, hang on to?
And they never explained why it had to be their family?
Because the grandmother was like the leader of that cult. I think I looked at it as like she almost founded this cult, and that's why I
called her queen.
Yes.
So, but where was the king?
The King Payman. She was also. See,
I'd be okay with them killing his queen.
She didn't get killed. She died.
Yeah.
You know, and also when you think about it, because we discussed this about Charlie. I think Charlie was Payman the whole time, and I think it was Payman was aware where he was in Charlie's body, but you see that line in the book where it was like he is most comfortable in a male host.
Yeah. So
and you know how the telephone pole that she hits her head on?
Well, that was all planned out.
That had the marker on it. And when you think about it, it was like you go, well, how could they have planned that out and everything? Payman's power is like he's all-knowing and he can see the future and see it. So it's like they knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So once that happens, Peter, also the host has to be vulnerable for Payman to enter them. And Peter, throughout the movie, is getting more and more vulnerable. And especially at the end, once he just basically jumps out that window. God, that ending, by the way, goddamn. But he jumps out the window, and that's when he's vulnerable and basically dead. His spirit leaves, and Payman enters. And that's the reason I think Payman was in Charlie's body the whole time. Was Payman gets into Peter's body, right? And he immediately makes that clicking noise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like maybe Payman on on Earth is still young. He's still like Charlie's age, I guess. But because that Ann Dowd or Joan, played by Ann Dowd, she mentioned to Peter when he had Payman in him, she was like, don't worry. She called him Charlie, but then she started calling him Payman, which I will admit is a tad confusing. So
she said, she was like, don't worry, Charlie, you're Payman.
She was like, don't worry, you're in Peter's body, you're Payman. That you were King Payman.
But she calls him Charlie.
For one time. And then they start referring him to Payman because they're saying, Hail Payman.
But I wonder if it's like a sharing of a host.
Maybe.
Because the girl seemed to be...
But Toni Collette had got it in her at the very end.
But see, and that's my other question. Is that Payman hopping from body to body?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that light that you see is Payman. Because when you think about it, Toni Collette was already in a vulnerable state, but seeing Gabriel Byrne burned alive probably made her most vulnerable, and Payman entered her body. Which, when she was on the walls and shit...
I will say, when Payman jumps from body to body, the look on the faces, when it goes inside of him in the classroom, and he's smiling like that, and then in the mirror, he's smiling.
That's so unsettling.
Yeah. And then when Toni Collette gets it in her,
she just goes like dead almost.
Well, no, but then she grins a little.
Well,
and then the guy that's constantly smiling.
Well, that has nothing to do with Payman. That guy was just weird. It also didn't help that he was buck ass naked. That the first time seeing it, not him in particular, just that whole last 20 minutes between Toni Collette's on the walls. Mm-hmm. And then you have naked people all over the house, and they're smiling at him. Poor Peter. Peter's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there are so many scenes in this movie, like, even talking about it, I get, goosebumps, because it's like, I don't feel right. And it's such... It was... When you think of...
Why was Toni Collette sacrificed?
I would... so almost, it's like Bloodline. I almost assume.
Because it was her and her mom.
But Charlie's head was also on the statue, remember?
Yeah.
So I think it's almost like it's a hereditary, it's a bloodline thing. Because Gabriel Byrne was just burned.
Yeah.
But everyone else in that family, you have the grandmother and Toni Collette. But also Toni Collette had to kill herself so that Payman could exit her body to get to Peter. Think about it. She was like that. That, to me, was the scariest imagery of that last 20 minutes. When Toni Collette goes up into, the top of the attic, and she's chopping off her own head with the piano wire. No, thank you. No, thank you. God damn. That whole last 20 minutes were just nightmare fuel. And it still sticks with me to this day. But that's... And keep in mind, they're bowing down to Payman.
The movie, I kept thinking it was going to get scarier and scarier. I never took it as scary. Again, I watched it and I'm like, this is just how we just saw the beginning of it felt like an origin movie.
But
this is how Payman got started.
But that's, I guess that's just how it is.
How Payman came back.
But that's why it's unsettling, is because you're now this almost the equivalent of Satan.
It's very similar to the way that Omen ends.
No, it's Rosemary's Baby. The whole cultish thing, and that they've made Satan essentially, and by the end you're like, oh my god, it's basically evil won, and it's this movie. I love this movie.
What is he gonna do? He's crawl on the walls and...
No, he's powerful. He has tons of knowledge. Anyone that follows him has an abundance of wealth. Didn't it all say that in that paragraph? It said something like that.
Yeah, well, it said he had it.
But I think if you were a follower, that he would spread the wealth around. Maybe. See, that's why they're worshiping him for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Is that he has the knowledge of.
But now that they brought him back. How evil is the cult? What? I remember we looked this up afterwards. What
do you mean, how evil is the cult?
What bad is Payman doing? Remember we Googled this after the movie. What was the evil things?
Well, I think it's just because he's he's in hell or something. Like I think he's been banished to hell. Like I think he is a demon of some sort.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's how I look at it. So I guess it's all perspective at that point. I mean, maybe you'd be perfect for the Payman cult. I don't know.
Well, I was just saying, like, to me, all the horrible things that Payman was doing was just so he could come back.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't even like...
Yeah, but think about, like, any movie where there's a demon trying to overtake a body. He's just wanting to live. He's tired of being in almost like an in-between world, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That
being said, this movie's awesome.
Yeah, this movie's amazing. I give it an A. What do you give it? You give it A minus.
A minus.
Wish it was more of an origin. Continue going.
No.
This movie
it's
though,
an A minus. It's really good.
Something
Very
we
well
haven't
directed.
talked about. This movie was directed and written by Ari Aster. This guy, I think he is like. I think he will be one of the most famous directors of the upcoming generation. Like he's still young. He recently made Midsommar. His stuff is like impeccably shot.
Is it not Midsummer?
It's pronounced Midsommar, but it's spelled Midsommar. You can say it either way. I guess I'm pretentious. He also, like his writing, it's same thing with Midsommar and in Hereditary. It's like better when you watch it the second time around, or when you're really thinking about it. You're like, oh yeah, like that's what that meant, and that's why they were doing this. Like there's a lot of subtlety in his writing, and it's really kind of fun to watch a second time. I think he's brilliant, and the fact that Hereditary was his first movie is incredible. Like that's pretty incredible. And
to me, watching this movie, I mean, the story was good, and the ending, the imagery is creepy as hell. But to me, what stood out watching this movie was the acting and the directing.
Oh yeah,
you watch it, and it's while everything you watch is almost painful to watch because they're going through so much hurt as a family through all of it. And I don't know how many times I said poor Gabriel Byrne throughout all of this.
Poor guy.
And
that part he was taking, what was he taking, like sleeping pills? I was like, just keep pulling, keep putting them in there, bud.
But yeah, you watch it and you go, well, it's a beautiful movie. And then there's some really cool camera work that's done, and
tons of cool camera work.
Yeah.
So what was your scariest part of the film?
Ooh, probably the one scene where all of a sudden she's crawling on the walls in the background. Like that's the scariest part. You go, what?
But that truly was the moment where you go, shit is about to hit the fan.
Yeah.
And that's why for me, between the chopping off of the neck and also when he was in the classroom and he just he did like that, and then his
Peter, you all right?
And then everyone's looking at him like his friends were dicks, man. Remember, he was like having a panic attack, and they were like, "Oh, it's just weed, man." And he's like, "Don't they know? He just lost his sister." And then when he's in the room, they're like, "Peter, what are you doing, man?" And he's clearly has a contorted face and a messed up arm. They should know, like worst thing is like he's having a seizure or something. Yeah. I remember watching it this time around. I was like, his friends suck. But no, I love this movie.
To me, I thought the coolest scene, and I brought it up when we were watching it, is when it's when she brings him downstairs to perform the ritual.
Yeah, it's all one take.
It's all one take. But I love how when she's talking,
it's always a one-on-one conversation, and it's going one-to-one.
There's three of them there, and she is constantly talking. It's never really Gabriel Byrne and the son talking. It's her talking to each.
Yeah.
And the camera shifts to two and two.
That was creepy as fuck too, where Charlie started talking through Toni
Oh
Collette.
my God! Yes.
Mommy. And that, speaking of like that saying mommy, another creepy part was where there was one scene where I remember thinking, why would you do that? Is where Toni Collette's possessed. She's chasing Peter up the attic. Why would Peter go in the attic? He just went straight up the attic. Then she's on the ceiling of the attic, banging her head.
Yeah.
That was creepy. But what was really good acting, and I guess good writing, was that Peter went from saying mom and he started calling her mommy. Because that's like, it's showing how vulnerable he is at that moment. He was a kid. Like, he was so scared. Again, I love almost every scene in this movie. I could talk about it all day.
It's an interesting one because there is so much information given throughout the whole movie.
It's so good.
And it's like, it's like, I want to watch it again. I need a break. But I do want to see it.
Oh, it's heavy. I get it. I totally understand.
I do want to see it again because you feel like, I'd catch so much more.
You do. Trust me. I'm seeing, even third, fourth time watching it, I was like, oh yeah. Like, you just pick up on things. But, I would recommend this movie. That being said, it's not for everyone. I remember seeing this movie in theaters, leaving the theater, a couple in front of me were talking. The woman was like, that movie was terrible. She was trashing it and just saying like how much she hated it. And she was like, it was just so weird. And then the guy she was on the date with,
something.
He was just like, yeah, it was weird. Yeah, it was something. He clearly didn't want to admit that he liked the movie. It was so funny. But that's exactly it. It's like, I could see where some people were like, that movie is not for me.
Well, it is. I mean, it's some people. It's honestly, the ending's almost like it builds and builds and builds and builds. And I mean, it gets to a point where it's tough to watch in the sense that just what they're going through is tough to watch. And that's the reason it does. It's 2 hours. The movie feels 3+.
I disagree.
I mean, it's heavy, and you sit there and you're like, God, I want these people to quit suffering.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I don't know, maybe they were better off.
They could have gotten through this normally. Yeah, that is our take on Hereditary. It's on Amazon on both normal definition and 4K definition.
HD.
If you have Ultra HD TV,
it was really pretty.
Yeah, it was good. It was really well shot. Everything was good. So we will check you later, and we'll catch you next time.
I don't know what the hell that
just happened. Fail payment.